let's say it's sort of late July, and I am going to write July. And let's say it's July 20th. And I'm going to write a big 20 here. You could just write July 20th, the normal way, but you can also have fun putting this information just into a little metadata box here. There we go. Why do it this way? Just because it's kind of fun, right? So I've kind of date stamped my hike here. And I also want to geo-reference my journal page. So, so I'm going to put in, I'm here near Thousand Island Lake. So I put something down in my journal that says where I am, when it is. And because I've done this, I then put my journal back in my backpack. In the back of my head, I'm going to remember that on a blank page, I did this. And it will feel weird to me not to then want to fill this page up. So what I've done is I've just given myself an invitation, a little bit of a prompt that is going to help me get out my journal later. Otherwise, you might have done this before. Sometimes you'll go out with all the intentions of spending a day nature journaling, but your journal stays in the backpack the entire time. But if you do something like this just at the start of a hike, you're going to find it so much easier for you then to have other things follow it. So this kind of gives you a little bit of an anchor on the page. This day is bright, sunny. It's clear, so I'll give myself a little sun icon here. And it's a little bit windy. So there we go. That just gives me an anchor on my page. Now, I can put this back in my little hip pouch, and I start tromping down the trail. And what I do is as I'm walking along, I'm scanning around for two things. And these are wonder and beauty. So what I do is I just try to, anything that kind of, that seems weird and mysterious to me, I'm going to stop and explore that. Anything that I go like, oh, look at that. That's beautiful. I don't want to forget that. I'm going to put that down in my journal as well. And your mission, your goal is just to lower and lower your threshold for what feels beautiful to you, what feels exciting and mysterious to you. So by the time you practice this for a while, you'll walk down the trail and everything around you is looking beautiful and wonderful, and you want to put it in your journal. If you're living your life that way, you're making some really good decisions. So that's our target, that you're just walking down a trail somewhere and you're just finding more of this beauty, and you're stuffing your eyes with it and filling your heart. Well, you go walking down the trail, and in a little edge of a clearing, you see this flash of blue fly up from a little field and perch in the top of a tree. And you're really excited because, yep, you found your mountain bluebird. And so you go like, oh my, this is so beautiful. And against the blue sky, you've got this, you look at it and you say, this makes me joyful. This makes me happy. Now, what you want to do is to intentionally up your level of gratitude towards the bird. The more you're intentionally grateful to things around you, it turns out that this actually makes you happier. So what you want to do is to first just tell the bird about why you're so joyful to see it. You go, mountain bluebird, oh, look at you. Look at you. You look like somebody just rubbed the sky all over your feathers. Oh, you're gorgeous. And then you're up against this stark white branch against this blue, blue sky. And this just makes you know that you've kind of climbed the mountains enough. You've earned this little moment with this bird. And so you're just telling the bird, I actually speak to the birds out loud. I tell the world out loud why I'm grateful to be alive. And then I start to transfer that down to my little notebook. So the first thing I'm going to do is just to make a really quick sketch. There's a kind of branch that goes up, and the mountain bluebird is sitting on a little twig. And you notice I'm sort of starting my sketch here with a very, very light blue pencil. You can probably barely see these lines on your screen. So what I do is when I start drawing, I am blocking things in very lightly. If I find that if I start drawing with, say, my pencil or my ballpoint pen here, sometimes I will, it's hard for me to kind of get the details of what I'm looking at and the big picture at the same time. So I usually start drawings just by blocking them in with a kind of light blue pencil. Then what I do is I start to draw on top of that. And here I'm still pretty far away from this little bird. So my drawing is not going to have very much detail to it. From this distance, I'm barely kind of just getting the shape of this bird. And I can see there's a little bit of kind of dark wingtips on it. But basically, I don't see very much more detail from this distance than that. Actually, let me see if I can get us a little bit closer to this bird. Zoom. There we go. So you see my little drawing here, not very detailed at all, right? I've basically kind of said, like, I've got little kind of head that sticks up, little tail, chubby bird. And now what I'm going to do is just kind of give it a little bit of a branch to sit on. And it's this wonderful kind of white branch against this blue sky. You know, unfortunately, I don't have a Sierra Nevada branch right here, up here with me. But there are some wonderful stick shapes that you get up in the Sierra. So there it is. And then you see that it flies down into the grass, and you know, it seems to get some little food item, comes back up to this perch. So what I want to do is start off, for me, I often will start off with a little drawing, but very quickly I'm going to start to also add in some written notes. So I write next to it, flies down into sedges at creek edge. The more specific I can be, the better off I am. Came back up to same perch with a bug. So I'm going to draw the little bug in. Oh no. All right. So what I'm doing is just trying to document part of this experience. If I am, what caught me was the color, I will probably want to throw some color down on this sketch as well. So today I'm going to use some watercolor with this. And what I use when I do watercolor for my kit is I have a water brush. So this is a brush that has water inside the handle. For backpacking, this is absolutely wonderful. I'll show you the way that it works. I've got a little rag here. That's just a sock that I put on my wrist. Let me zoom backwards a little bit so you can sort of see this setup. All right, so here's my sock, an old dryer orphan, and this little water brush. Now I want to add some color to this thing. Check this out. Oh, this will be fun. I'm going to draw a little frame around this part. No, I'm going to have the frame come over further here because I want to get in more of that branch. So there, I'm moving, using this sort of blue pencil to figure out where I want to kind of frame this bird. And there's this, if you've ever seen Sierra Nevada sky, there's one of John Muir's writings where he's describing this landscape, and then he says, and above is the bluest sky, and there's nothing bluer than what we get up in our Sierra Nevada skies. So I'm going to test some sky colors over here. And what I'll do is I'll make a swatch on my paper, and I'll then look back at the sky. I'll hold this up against the sky, and how does that look? And I go like, oh, no, still not quite right. I need it to be a little bit more of a, that just sort of seems a little bit greeny. So I change my blue up here. I retest, oh, hold it up against the sky. Now I like it, right? So I didn't like my first blue, so I'm not just going to go like, oh, look, it's blue, and get something that's blue and put it up there. You can actually test different sky colors. And Sierra Nevada skies are different colors of blue in different parts of the sky. So I'm going to just start by painting in here what isn't the stick. And you'll see that with a brush like this, it has a very fine point, I get a ton of control over this. And by putting this dark blue right next to that white stick, I really kind of pop out how vivid the sky is. Kind of what I want to get here is just a little bit of contrast between the whiteness of that stick The research on gratitude is very, very interesting. We think that if everything's going right for you, you're happy, and therefore you're grateful. So that people who are happy are grateful. But it actually, you may know people who have all the reasons to be happy, but aren't. But it turns out that if you deliberately, oh, see there, I like that. Let me zoom down on it. So just a little bit of dark blue pops out that white stick. That's going to help you remember that moment. Now let's get some mountain bluebird color on it. Yeah, that's actually first stab. So light kind of blue here. Mountain bluebirds are just gorgeous, gorgeous little animals. I'm going to lighten its tummy a little bit. So while the paint is still wet, I just wipe some paint off of my cuff here. And I'm going to just slide this along the belly, and there it goes. I just made my belly lighter. There's my little mountain bluebird. And this is just going to remind me of this moment. It didn't take too long, and I'm going to just try to also put in a few placeholders. What stood out for me? Well, there was the blue against blue. White wood. let's see that. I'm dyslexic, so sometimes my spelling is interesting. There's supposed to be two, is there two O's or one O? Anyway, I'm going to keep it with this because I don't mind being dyslexic. And you look through my journals, you'll find lots of creative ways to spell things. What else do I want to remember about this moment? I've got that little observation there. You know, this might be good. So just a couple little observations there. White wood, blue against blue, white wood. Contrast with morning sky. All right. So you just put in a few of your observations, and this will remind you of why you were so happy. The journal page becomes a celebration of all the little wonders along the trail. And then you're going to find that just, you know, having this little visual representation, a few of these notes, later on, you know, this almost becomes a little, almost a non-rhyming poem of your memories and your experiences. I find if I try to, sometimes if I try to deliberately write a poem, my brain will kind of freeze. But if you write down just sort of things that kind of catch your heart and transfer those to paper in whatever way possible, the whole page becomes just a celebration of wonder and beauty. So you're about to head on, and then the bird flies a little bit closer to you. So sometimes when you're still and quiet out there in nature, nature comes to you. And when that happens, you want to be ready to take advantage of it. If you try to sneak up on the bluebird will go like, "Who are you sneaking up on?" And the bluebird will fly away. But if you, but when they come to you, or you pull out your binoculars, you're able to take things like this to a much deeper level. So I'm just going to make a quick sketch of this thing in a little bit more detail. I really like often to have birds of different sizes, sketches of different sizes of the same subject on the same piece of paper. So on this one, I'm going to just start with the general kind of angle of its back, and I block in its head and its sort of eye-beak line. This one is looking towards me a little bit, so I'm going to put crosshairs through its face. I'm going to get the angle on the side of its head and its chest out here. So that's how I start a drawing of a bird. The shape of the back, put in a head, the shape of the front, and I use that to sort of place a ball of the body. This bird has a wing that comes down on the side of its body. Birds will often have a very interesting angle. These are called the undertail coverts, under the tail. And where those meet the belly feathers, you will often see really, really interesting angles right in there. So places I look for angles are started off there, right down there. You get some things kind of carve in your bird shape. So you can make a quick sort of posture sketch like this quickly. And then I'll go over that and start to sort of fill in my bird shape. So this one has a sort of looking off on the side. The beak is going to appear a little bit shorter to me because it's foreshortened. So I'm just going to have a little beak in there, and there's a little bit of dark feathers, black feathers between the beak and on the bird's lores that kind of connect that to the body. So there, It's a quick little bird head. The bird is sort of fluffed up. Here's its back and scapular feathers. Its wing has a leading edge down here. And there's a couple of big parts of the wing. There's the secondary feathers. There's the covert feathers. And on bluebirds, the primary feathers that stick out the bottom of the wing are fairly dark on their top. I find that if I try to match colors right off the bat, very often I will kind of get funky colors on my paintings in the field. With a bird like this, if the bird's being cooperative, I'll want to spend some time matching some colors. So I'm going to be a little bit more careful now, just sort of thinking about those. But before I drop any color in, actually, I'm going to put in a little bit of shadow. Test my shadow color. The sun is going to be on this bird's back. It's going to have shadow here underneath its wing, shadow coming across. It's putting its belly into shadow here. And there we go. So there's a little bit of shadow on the belly of the bird. I usually put that on first and then let then I'll put the other colors of the bird on top of the shadow. If you do the shadow at the end, it often messes up your picture. Here's just a few more details on the head of my bird. While that shadow is drying, I can kind of just play around with other sorts of things. People say, like, how can you draw birds? They fly away. But actually, the point of drawing birds is that it's because that they can fly away that they don't have to. You try to draw a mammal, the mammals are going to be the ones that really hide from you. But birds, let's test some colors here. What color is its back? You like test that, you go, nope. What about that? That's rather similar. Still nope. Nope. Close enough. So what I do when I get a color that I like, my shadow is dry, I can just take that color and paint it across my little birdie. A general rule of thumb with watercolor is that you do the lighter colors first, and then you work your way into the darker colors. So I'll put this stuff down as an undercoat. Oh, I'll try to do this while this is still wet. I'm going to take my brush. See how I'm just lifting a little bit of paint off the back of the bird? That makes the back of it sort of feel that it can be kind of a little bit more in sunlight. And now I want a very pale chest. Just a soft little bit of cyan. There it goes. Now, I'm going to let that dry. and make it just a note here. That it perched on snag 20 feet from me. What a joy. And so when the birds cooperate with you, take advantage of that. Anything that is being cooperative, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's a snail, right, that says, hey, look at me, I'm going to play with that snail. If you're going out, you want to draw birds, you're not going to find any birds that day. So just take advantage of whatever wildflowers or things you see. But then you're going to find that when you are still and quiet for a while, very often the animals will come to you. Well, this is drawing up in the Sierra air. This would dry almost immediately. Almost immediately. So I could then put a few darks on top of it here. I'm actually not up in the Sierra Nevada. I'm you're catching me in San Mateo, indoors, and so it's taking a little bit longer to dry than it would out in the high Sierra. So then you get out some snacks, all important, those snacks, and you start kind of bopping down the trail again. And you go further down the trail, and this time you come over a little rise, and there before you is Thousand Island Lake, and there's Mount Banner sticking up, and you are just overcome with beauty. You fill your canteen again, and you want some way of connecting yourself more deeply with this spot. And so making a sketch of the landscape is a wonderful way to do that. The only challenge is that what people usually do when they say, like, they're looking out at a vast landscape, and so because the landscape is big, they draw big. And so what they'll do is they will let's see, back up. Yeah, so they'll turn their paper this way, and they'll start drawing all the way from over here, all the way over to here, because it's a big landscape in front of them. And so you think you need, because we're used to thinking like Bierstadts and these sorts of things are big landscape paintings. And so we go really big, and then that makes drawing the thing much more difficult, much more logistically difficult. And so I'm going to suggest a way of handling landscapes that is much friendlier. And this is the idea of the landscapito. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a little thumbnail drawing of a landscape that catches my eye. And the trick is to keep it small and keep it simple. If you've ever been out on a landscape and started to draw a forest and part of the way kind of got sick of drawing trees, you know the problem of biting off too much. So with this, all you want is we're going to take a little journal page snapshot of this view. And so here's how I'm going to do it. I first am going to get my blue pencil again, and I'm going to block in my basic shape. And but my goal is to keep this landscape really pretty small. So it's a giant landscape before me, but I'm going to just go small with part of it. All right. So I'm going to see I've got a little kind of ridge in here. I've got a banner that is going to stick up. There is a little ridge to the right of that, and there is a wonderful lake in front of that. So down in here is going to be parts of Thousand Island Lake. Oh, hold on. Oh, I've got a medical emergency. I need to help my daughter. I will, let's jump. I'm going to unpin my screen. Actually, you guys take care of this. I need to, some medical problem. Right. I got you, honey.
Hey everybody, this is Brittany Kovish with Sierra Nevada Conservancy. I think we'll just give Jack another minute or so. If not, we'll end and see about possibly rescheduling him at another time. Let's give him just a few minutes and then we'll follow up. Board Member Johnston, I see you have your hand up. Give me just a second. Okay, Board Member Johnston, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
Well, Brittany, I thought while we were waiting, I might just say something for a minute or two about the Alliance, the Conservancy.
That would be great, thank you.
I don't know how many people on this Zoom know about the Conservancy, but John Brissenden and I are the two board members that are on this Zoom, and it's great, as always, with Jack. If you ever can go on a field trip with him, it's a fabulous experience. As you can see by how he's way beyond just sketching things. He's totally into the environment. So it's wonderful to be with him. But the Conservancy is becoming a very important institution. It's been around for about 17 years. And I think, John, you said we've given away 140 million in grants to local agencies and private groups in the 22 Sierra counties for forest clearing work and related stuff. Oh, end of advertisement. How'd it go?
We're doing well. My daughter, while sharpening a pencil, stabbed her thumb and was dripping red. And so we washed her up, took care of her. She's happy. She's bandaged up. She's back in class. And so I'm juggling their Zoom meetings, their school, and whatever kind of wayward medical problems we can run into while in our class while doing this meeting. So I apologize for the interruption, but that I think you understand took priority. But I'm back. What I am going to do is just sort of do a quick demo on this landscape. And then what I want to do is have a block of time here for kind of question and answer. I know that there'll be some specific questions that people have. And I just let people know that while I'm doing my presentation, I can't manage the chat at the same time. So if you put something into the chat and I seem to be ignoring you, I am sorry. But my ability to like do two things at the same time because of the dyslexia reading, actually, like I need to be like, I'm reading your words now. So I can't really do that at the same time, but we will get to your questions in just a minute. But I want to show you just a few strategies for playing with some landscapes in your journal. These are a few things that will make landscapes a lot faster and a lot more fun. for you. And then we'll have a chance to open it up to a Q&A. All right? Here we go. Let's jump back to the thrill cam here. So you see what I've done is, this is pretty small. So this is about 1 inch tall and maybe 3 or 4 inches wide. That's not very big. And that's that way on purpose. So what I then do is I start just with a little sketch like this. You know, if I realize that I need to sort of, you know, move things around or the proportions of this are not quite right, it's easy for me to change in a small little drawing like this. But here I don't think I even need to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just draw in kind of a, I've got a ballpoint pen here. And rather than making all my lines as one continuous line, some places I'm breaking my lines. If I'm looking at the edge of a lake here, you're going to get a number of points that are kind of coming out like this. Here's an island in the middle of the lake. And there fortunately aren't 1,000 islands there. And even if there were 1,000 islands, I wouldn't be drawing them all. What I'm trying to do is just sort of get a sense of this landscape that I have. So look at this. As this little line comes up, I'm going to zoom in on this little line and show you a little shortcut here. There are some very small kind of Krummholz trees out here. So I'm just putting a few little dots along that line there. You see how that just sort of suggests that, oh, there could be a little bit of vegetation, a little bit of some little tree sort of thing going on out there. Similarly, here in the foreground, here are some trees. Just that gives me some trees. Zoom on that more. Good chunk. All right. That gives me some trees going down to the water again. So you don't have to have every little line in. Now these lines that I've got so far I've been pressing fairly hard with my little ballpoint pen. For these ones in the background though, check this out. What I do is I am going to draw more lightly with my pen. And as I do this, because it's a lighter line, as we look at that, our brains sort of feel, oh, I got to keep that on the screen, right? Our brains say like, oh, you know, those are more distant. This area here on these peaks and ridges ends up being a big blank zone, but there's all sorts of cool little snow fields and things in up here. But I don't want to get too much detail back here, or what will happen is parts of your drawing that have a lot of detail really tend to pull forward in a sketch. So there can be a lot of detail back here, contrasting dark rock, white snow, but I want to initially kind of keep that a little bit more mellow, a little bit more subdued. Here is sort of a ridge line facing towards me. Here is just I can put in a little bit of detail here, sort of showing that these are some peaks, but you don't want to put in too much fussy detail back there. So right there, oh, check this out. I'm gonna actually make my sky come all the way up, overlap the tail of that bird. If you get things in your drawing kind of overlapping, zoom back a little bit. If parts of your drawings kind of overlap a little bit, that provides a lot of visual interest. Kind of compositionally, you want to have either more sky than land or more land than sky, but you don't want to have this horizon line be right in the middle. So this is kind of nice for me. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some color to this. You could color in this entire thing. All right, you could get your paints out, paint the whole sky, but especially if your landscape tends to get a bit larger and starts to get away from you, you go like, oh my gosh, this is getting too big. And you've got a big drawing, and now you're thinking, how on earth will I begin to add my, to paint this? The larger your painting, or the larger your coloring area, the more difficult it is to do. So here's a fun strategy that you can do. What I can do is I can find the part of this that is the most interesting to me. And I am going to just draw a little box around that. There you go. So what I've done is I've taken a subset of this line drawing and I put a frame around it. So what am I up to now? Well, now I started off with a small landscape. I now have a little bit of that small landscape. And in that, I'm going to test my sky color over here, and did not get it on my first try. Yeah, the sky's blue, but don't take that for an answer. But I can now kind of come in here and there is a little bit of sky behind my mountain. And I'm going to put my just sort of a pencil in here for scale, right? This is a small little painting. So it allows me to, I just painted my whole sky in a few seconds. But I did that because it's small. Now, let's draw a whole mountain in a few seconds. Because it's small, I'm going to be able to get away with this. All right, test my color. And I'm going to do this two ways. The first way I'm going to show you is just using a brush and pen. And then the second way will be if I were to have made a mistake doing that, and I might, how I might just go ahead and fix that. So up here on my mountain, I am having an upper edge that is dark. And then down in here is this zone of snowfields. You don't have to match it snowfield for snowfield, but you want to get the general shape of sort of major elements in that. And you want it to suggest the level of detail that you're seeing. Otherwise, you just go nuts, kind of going like, is that mark there? No, that mark is, no, where am I? Which mark? And you kind of lose your place in all of those little marks. All right. There's my little mountain with some snow on it. The closer ridge here has a little snowfield on it, but not very much. And there's a few green plants I'm going to put in the test this color. Oh, glad I tested it. That was been a little bit too intense. Want a little bit less vivid. There we go. Just a little bit of some green down in here. Just a little bit of green on here. There you go. There's a tendency for us just to grab bright green off our palette and jack that into things. And lastly, the color of the water. Squint at it and determine whether it is lighter or darker than the sky. I squint at mine and I go, it is blue, but it is a darker blue. And so I test those colors before they go on. And then all right. And landscape done. So I would stop there. I'm done. I've put in a little bit of sky. Let me back up from this whole thing. So I had basically a vignette within a vignette. And maybe I put some more blue down here just for fun. There we go. That's fun. And you can do these little landscapitos really, really quickly. You draw yourself a landscape, pick out the part you want to focus on, and you're good to go. Let me show you what I would have done if I didn't like my snowfields. I'll zoom in closer to that again. So let's say I didn't like my snowfields. What I'll do is just go, okay, snowfields, you're all gone. Erase my snowfields. I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to do a cool trick on top of it. While I'm letting that dry, I can jump back to this beastie that is now dry. And I'm going to put a little bit of dark in by its lores, its beak. On its wings, there's these back parts here on the tertials. It's got some darker feathers, darker in here. Little hint of detail is often much more effective than trying to put it all in. There we go. I really love mountain bluebirds. Okay. Well, this little guy down here is dry enough. So, want to know? Here's a fun little trick. Once this is done, you can add in snowfields using a bunch of different tools. This is a white gel pen. This is a Presto correction pen. You also might use white gouache, although the paper has to be really dry for that. Let me just sort of show you how with these I can get kind of a quick sense of snowfields again. So I've made my hill dark, and we'll just jump down there so that you can see what I'm doing. And I am going to say, all right, I want, oh, this isn't actually quite dry. So when it's not dry, the wet watercolor comes up through the pen. And so it'll make it a little bit more dull, but I'm just going to keep on going. And I'm putting in some blocks. some shoots. I'm connecting some of these lines together so it just doesn't look like a bunch of thin white pen lines. And here, so I'm drawing where there's snow rather than adding in the white rocks. I mean, in the dark rocks around the snow. So it's kind of reverse thinking. So just a little hint of that. And if it feels too intense to you, then you can lighten it. See, if I tap it with my finger, I get some of that ink coming off on my finger. And that just makes the value of that little zone in there it's a little bit more subtle. So I put my, this on a large area isn't going to work very well. That's where something like this Presto correction pen might come in. This is going to be much brighter white. But you see the same sort of a thing where I'm adding my snow fields in. Now, words, pictures, and numbers are your best strategies for recording things in your journal. Here's a little picture. Sound of wind in pine needles. Oh my, let's zoom out. Sound of wind and pine. Movement of light across the lake as the wind gusts. Cold water. Cold water clear, best drink ever. Whatever it is that you're thinking, just get it down on paper, get it out of your head. Best drink ever. But you stick your toes in the water and they feel like they're on fire, but burns your toes. Nobody else will read that and understand what you're thinking about, but you'll remember it. You know, so there's just kind of capturing a few little moments, a few little ideas of what was special, significant to you about that place. And there you have it. We've got some observations, the mountains, the birds. If I find a wildflower growing nearby, I could throw that in on the same page. And what you're going to get, you're just sort of making a collection of experiences from that day. And that's how you sort of go about building a nature journal page. The pictures don't have to be pretty pictures. The things you write don't have to be spelled correctly or profound or deep or anything. The most important thing is you kind of just take an idea, get it out of your head and onto paper, get it out of your head and onto paper. The more you do that, the more practice you're going to get with it. So if at this point, drawing is not really within your comfort zone, if you just start doing this on a regular basis, over the course of 1 year hiking in the Sierra Nevada, you're going to develop those skills again. It's just a skill that comes from doing it again and again. But whatever you notice, get it out of your head and onto paper. Whatever you're feeling, get it out of your head and onto paper. So actually, let's kind of go inside just a little bit more. How am I feeling after this experience? I'm feeling refreshed, renewed, and so I'm going to write that down on the paper. So I'm just going to, my practice usually is I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of, so I make my observations, I'm asking questions. And actually, question for the bluebird is, where do you go in winter? Where do you go in winter? I want to know a little bit more about that bird. But anyway, then the other thing I can do is I want to take that process and also just sort of point it back at myself. What do I notice about the way that I am feeling right now? I'm feeling refreshed, renewed, calm, hopeful, even after so much smoke. So you're also letting yourself onto that page. There's room here for the observer. There's room here to let yourself in. Don't worry about making a masterpiece. Don't worry about having it have to be a pretty page. If you want things that are pretty, the secret is just to make lots of pages. The more you do that, the more you're going to just develop that skill. It just comes with doing it over time. There's so much blue going on here that I think I'm going to celebrate that blue just a little bit more. Sometimes what I'll do is I will, let's see, I'm just going to take some blue paint here. It's because this is sort of a blue themed day. There we go. It's kind of fun. The more you can kind of get rid of that self-judgment and just kind of be out there, bliss out, have fun, connect with the place. That's why you're doing something like this. So just let the voices, the criticism, let that stuff drift away. You're doing this for yourself, to help you remember, to help you pay attention, to help you notice things that you would not have seen, to help you carry those observations in your mind, to give you a reference later on. You can pull back up your notes and kind of go like, oh, when was that hike, or when are we seeing those in that meadow? When did those come into bloom? All those notes are right there in your nature journal. And the more you practice it, the more you'll see. The more you see the more you'll connect with the mountains. The more you'll connect with the mountains, the more you're going to fall in love with the place. That's what the Nature Journal is about. It's an invitation to fall in love with a place. And I hope there have been some useful strategies and ideas here.